Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
All the programs of the Poetry Center, the Theater and Poetry Project, the Cultural Affairs Department, the Passaic County Cultural and Heritage Council, the art galleries, all those programs are basically funded by the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Passaic County Community College, and individual donations from people who give us money, and also from the books we sell when people come to read. So every little bit helps. So I hope you'll think of giving us a donation, because you know things are really tight in the art world right at the moment, and I don't want to have to cut anything. At this point, we have a senior citizens, mature adult workshop. I'm not allowed to say senior citizen, and I ended up having to teach two of them myself because we didn't have the money. So, all right, so I did. It's not that I mind teaching them, but it's nice to spread the wealth a little bit. You people must be sick of me by now. And I'm going to have, out of this issue, number 41, I'm going to ask people who signed up and said they wanted to come to read in honor of the issue, to read the one or two poems that they have in the issue. If they have 3 poems in the issue, we're going to give them a chance to read them. And also, if they have one in this issue and one in an early issue, I'm quite happy to have them do that as well. Because I really want it to be a celebration of the magazine, which has actually gone on now since 1977. I don't know how many of you remember, it used to be called Footwork.
Yeah.
And gradually, Footwork got smaller and smaller, and Paterson Literary Review got bigger and bigger until I was able to drop Footwork off the cover. So anyway, I'm going to start, and I'm going to just read the bio from the magazine for Sue Bailick. There's always an advantage to having a name that starts with A or B. Sue is the Associate Director of Cultural Affairs at Passaic County Community College. She has a master's in journalism from NYU and has written many feature stories as well as a column for Northern New Jersey newspapers. Her poems have appeared in Lips, Paddlefish, Tiferet, a journal of spiritual literature, and she also has become an absolutely invaluable member of my staff. When I got her, I couldn't have functioned without Sue. So I'm inordinately grateful for her, and please help me give her a round of applause in welcoming her.
This issue is so beautiful, and I'm just honored to be in it. Thank you so much. Okay, the first poem I'm going to read is called Hot Pink Rubber Gloves, and it's for my daughter. I wrote it, she was about 8 years old at the time when I wrote it, and she had these great, vinyl gloves that made her very excited about washing dishes, and it lasted, I think, just a few short weeks. And now she's 13, and we have to beg her to wash the dishes. So, but anyway, this is some fond memories. Hot Pink Rubber Gloves. I don't remember your brother ever singing when he washed dishes, unless moaning, groaning, banging, sloshing, and rocking out to AC/DC count. But your kind of whistle while you work him has not been heard while he was chief dishwasher. Never such sweet melody wafting through the kitchen, as delicious and inviting as the smell of just baked banana bread. With your blue denim apron tied tightly around your waist, finally you're tall enough to rest forearms on the sink. Hot pink rubber gloves, the ones you and Dad picked out special at the Rite Aid. Fits snugly on little hands, traveling up your arm to the elbow like some shiny imitation of formal evening wear. As you croon opera-like to your Disney CD, you announce that you wouldn't mind being a maid to a princess. I envy your gift for unearthing joy in the most ordinary task, your ability to turn drudgery into delight. But I know one day, my little Cinderella, you will dance at the ball. And the next poem, called Love Poem to My Father, was a very difficult poem for me to write. I probably couldn't write it for a few years after the incident that I had with my father. My father and I rarely fought. We've maybe had, 2 fights in our whole life. And this one that I'm about to read about was major. It was like World War III. And anyway, everything's good now. We love each other. It's probably even better than before, if that's possible, because we were so good before that. But anyway, it was hard to write about, but Maria, I wrote it in one of Maria's workshops, and it just tumbled out of me, so I guess I needed to write it. Love Poem to My Father. Dad, I see you lying on the cracked vinyl couch in the basement, reading a thriller you've taken from the library without checking out, saying, I'll bring it back. I always bring it back. You don't look up when I come in, though I call to you. Your hearing's so bad. Those free hearing aids you got from the VA don't work. Finally, when I'm almost on top of you, the one white shelter dog squeezed next to you, his fat pink belly exposed, you look up at me and I tell you about some program at the library I'd like to take you to. And I can't help but notice how thin you are, how your hands tremble, just a little. I look at you lying there in your gray sweatpants and cashmere sweater. I look at you and can see love in your eyes. Or is that just what I want to see? What you have such a hard time putting into words? What I have such a hard time putting into words? I wish I could tell you what I've been wanting to tell you for the past 2 years, since we had that big argument, when I told you I hated you and you told me you'd take that to your grave. And though I hated you in that moment, that emotion fizzled out as quickly as the firecracker that exploded out of me, because I'm Daddy's little girl, the obedient one, the devoted one, and I don't know how to do anything else, be anything else. I only know how to love you.
Okay, our next reader is Laura Boss. I don't need this, I don't think, to introduce Laura, but I don't want to forget anything. So Laura is the first prize winner of the Poetry Society of America's Gordon Barber Poetry Contest, founder and editor of Lips. She's also the recipient of 3 New Jersey State Council on the Arts Poetry Fellowships, and in June 2011 received the first International Poetry Award at the International Poetry Festival at Swansea, Wales. Her books include Reports from the Front, Arms, New and Selected Poems, and Flashlight. Her poems have appeared in the New York Times, among other publications. Let's welcome Laura.
I'm really happy to be here. It's like family when so many faces for so many years. And for Maria, congratulations. Most magazines are like restaurants. They only last 2 years. So for Maria to do what she does is incredible. And but I want to say one thing before I read my own poems, and that is because Maria is the kind of editor she is, she doesn't always say much about her own work, but she has a new book called The Silence in an Empty House. It just came out about 2 days ago. So if you're looking for Christmas gifts or a gift for yourself, that's it. Okay. It's so beautiful.
That's Linda.
Oh, and Linda's here.
And I see Linda in the back. Isn't it amazing?
Beautiful.
Everybody who picks it up says, oh, that painting is so amazing.
She's also a really talented poet as well. So, okay. So I'll read what I have in this. This is about a poet I lived with, or as I have in one poem, he lived with me many, many moons ago. When I first met Gregory, years ago when I first met Gregory at the New York Book Fair, I was thrilled that he flirted with me. I guess I must have flirted back, At the same time, I was also feeling a bit shy in front of this poet whose poem Marriage I had taught as an adjunct in the English department of FDU. It was my favorite poem, and I figured this guy who wrote it had to be funny and smart, and though he was really dissipated looking, you could see how handsome he must have been when young, with his perfect nose, his bushy eyebrows now gray, his full lips that seemed still ready to kiss any woman who moved close to them. "Can you leave with me now?" he asked, but I said I had to stay with my magazine booth until the end of the day. "I'll be back for you at 6, he said, and he was. The last time he was ever that prompt with me. We headed toward Elaine's. "Gregory, you have to leave," she told him. "You can't smoke pot here." We took my car down to Little Italy, where he told me he had been born. He pointed to the second-floor lit window of that apartment. He told me how his mother had abandoned him when he was a baby, how he had been arrested for supposedly stealing when he was young and working in the garment industry. "But I didn't do it," he repeated. We went back to my apartment on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River. He looked at the view of the New York skyline when you could still see the Twin Towers. He lay down on my brown velvet sofa and smiled, reached for me. And even now, so many years later, I wonder how I could have mixed up a poem I adored and thought when I was young, or at least what seems young to me now, how this man, or any man, would be as perfect as his poem, though in retrospect Gregory had the brilliance, energy, and wit of his poem, though I soon realized how rum and drugs will destroy even the most beautiful of men. My role model was my Aunt Rose, and I wrote this poem about a photo of her, and this was, well, I'll just read it. Snapshot. In the 1940 snapshot, my Aunt Rose is perched on the ship's railing, her legs crossed movie star style over the white canvas round life buoy, with letters spelling SS Jamaica, New York on the polished wooden deck. She is a Ginger Rogers look-alike in her stylish black dress with 2 slanted white pockets, each with a black button for decoration. She wears a wide-brimmed picture hat and even a wider smile that seems to welcome whatever adventure will come her way on this cruise ship. In her smile, there is no hint of the war-rumbling waves on the smooth sea beneath her, no men her age in uniform soon to ship out to Europe, out to Pacific waters on a bon voyage, blood and death journey, no indication of the widowhood that awaits her at 32. She is like America at that moment, caught in dazzling, peaceful sunlight, no indication of the world shipwreck awaiting in nearby harbors. Thank you very much.
Our next reader is Linda Hillringhouse, and I want to tell Linda that I did announce that, I don't know where Mark is, but I did announce that his photograph is on the front, oh, there's Sander, that his photograph is on the front of and back of this issue, and that he's both a wonderful photographer and a wonderful poet. And just as you are a wonderful poet and a wonderful artist. Okay, Linda Hillringhouse received an MFA in poetry from Columbia University and taught writing for many years at Passaic County Community College in Paterson, New Jersey. A self-taught artist, she has shown her paintings at the Newark Museum, the Paterson Museum, and the Yale School of Art, among other venues, and is included in the 20th Century Self-Taught Artists Archive collections at the American Folk Art Museum in New York. She's recently won 2nd place in the Pablo Neruda Prize for Poetry. And not only is did she do the painting on the cover of this latest book, but she did the cover as well. I mean, her painting is on the cover as well of the place I call home. And if you ever get a chance to go to one of her exhibits, please do. Let's welcome Linda Hillringhouse.
Just briefly, I'll say that I really am thrilled to be here. It is an honor. I've kind of been underground a long time with the poetry. It's kind of hard to get back out there. And Maria has been nothing but gracious and generous. And I am honored to be among you. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. And the magazine, the review is gorgeous. I'm so happy to be in here. The poem is called Something Luminous for Mike Reardon. Someone found you dead, lying in a stream under a footbridge in Mount Arlington, New Jersey, in the middle of spring. Maybe you tried, like Lee Poe, to embrace the reflection of the moon and fell in. Maybe your eyes opened underwater and saw something luminous dart away, provoking a moment of clarity so huge, so unbearable, it is sent from your body and forms a cloud the size of everything that went wrong, then disappears in the sky. Not the bottle or poetry, not brains or heart or humor, not anything could stop the slow-moving tornado formed at your birth from sucking you into its gray mouth and spitting you out under the bridge, a sharp rock, your last pillow.
Our next reader is Rob Marcassani, and he's a psychoanalyst in private practice and a longtime therapist in New York City. He was co-editor of the Psychotherapy Patient Journal and book series for Howarth Press. He lives and writes in New York City, inspired most these days by the teens he works with in a New York City high school and the beauty of the High Line. I'm very pleased to welcome Rob Marcassani.
Thank you so much, Maria. I wrote this piece 2 summers ago and called it Recession Vacation. Summer 2011, June 15th, Greece is being turned upside down. July 15th, Italy's own financial crisis hits the news. The same week, so does our national debt ceiling limit, with a looming deadline in early August to spend more or cut more. All the while, I talk of flying to England on a friend's buddy pass to save money, only to lose it with the dollar being so weak against the British sterling of our mother country. July 19th, an evening walk on the High Line, and I get my favorite gelato, Cioccolato Varona, at the Del Arte del Gelato stand, and I marvel at the still new portion of the High Line, only 2 months old. I reach its end before the planned 3rd phase at 30th Street and ponder the changing skyline, marveling at the new glass makeover the Javits Center is getting, the new train station for the number 7 line across the street being built, and I think of my friend who just had major spinal surgery today, who I will visit in the morning straight up 10th Avenue at St. Luke's Roosevelt. The rest of his summer will be spent recovering in a neck brace, out of work, looking for a job, and unable to go to the Bahamas. I look around and I remember all the moments I became bored in sweltering hot Rome 2 summers ago, in England, in Las Vegas, and so many other places after exhausting traveling, both mentally and financially. I think I'll stay here and enjoy the gelato on the High Line for $3 and enjoy my walk home. No planes to catch, no jet lag to recover from. Maybe I'll go next year to Bangalore. For now, I'll enjoy the new Salameria the Sicilian Brothers from Queens open 2 blocks from me on 9th Avenue, and their freshly made mozzarella every 2 hours. For now, I'll enjoy the ferry to Sandy Hook, standing naked on the beach looking back at Manhattan. For now, I'll bike to Staten Island and contemplate the Chinese Scholars House and Healing Gardens, only a bike ride away. For now, I'll enjoy laughter yoga, the only free yoga in town, and laugh with friends and strangers alike. For now, I'll stay put in New York and join the travelers who have come here from Rome, from England, from the Southwest, and from India, and be part of their vacation in my own backyard. Thank you.
Our next reader is Elizabeth Marchetti, who's one of our loyal people who has attended these readings for a very, very long time. I don't know how long, Elizabeth. I don't want to insult you. But it's been a long time.
I tell everyone how old I am.
Well, none of us want to give that information. Elizabeth Marchetti's poems have appeared in the Journal of New Jersey Poets, Lips, the Paterson Literary Review, and other journals. Her chapbook, Pause and Begin Again, was published by Northwind Publishing in 2006. In 2011, in Praise of Stillness, won first prize in Bear Publishing's mini chapbook contest. Let's welcome Elizabeth Marchetti from Tulsa.
Thank you so much, Maria. I just love to come here. I was born in Paterson, but it's when I moved up the hill to Tulsa. I'm always inspired by other poets, and William Stafford is my favorite. So I was reading a poem in which he said, "Somebody today called me old. I whirled. Why, you young whippersnapper?" The young man at LA Fitness who swipes my card and tells me to have a good workout calls me dear. Workout? Honey, I swim. I exercise in the pool. If I thought of it as a workout, I'd rather stay home and take a nap. Mostly I get respect from the young whippersnappers I meet. Why is that? Do they think of me as mom? Or maybe grandma? I watch the cute young things through the tall windows that separate the pool from the exercise machines. I watch them on the treadmill, on the elliptical, doing push-ups as I leisurely swim in the lukewarm water. The girls are slender, firm of leg and torso, and I like to remember I was like that once. Hiker, swimmer, young mother who played badminton in the street with athletic daughters. I let her go, that dream of me young. Slowly swim up to the present, to the good life I live now.
All right, and Maud writes inspirational poetry and poems to record family history. This is her 4th honorable mention in the Allen Ginsberg contest. She has twice won awards in St. Catherine Art and Poetry Exhibition in Ringwood. Her work has been published in PLR, Lips, Sensations, Pillar Monthly, and Robert W. Francis Celebrate the Feast of the Lord. She posts poetry regularly to her blog at maudpoems.com. Maud is also one of the nicest people you could ever possibly want to meet. Let's welcome Maud.
Thank you, Maria. The poem I'm going to read, I just have to explain one word. It's tzitzit. It's what that is the fringes that hang from the prayer shawl, the corners of the prayer shawl. The poem is called At the Armory on the Sabbath Day, Latrun, Israel, 2006. We visit the Museum of the Armory in Latrun. Observe Merkava tanks, the best in the world, solid and serious, built to encase Israeli soldiers in a womb of steel, built to show the enemy who's boss. And we see names, row after row of names, etched on a long, dark wall, exactly 4,498 of them. The names of soldiers, mostly young, killed in Israel's wars. Our guide points to one newly engraved. It is his friend Oz, who died a few months ago. Oz, who fought at his side in the war against Hezbollah and Lebanon, the war we watched on our American TVs in June. I talk with 3 young soldiers holding M15s, ask if I may photograph them. They politely decline. It is the Sabbath. One of them has carefully knotted tzitzit protruding from his olive drabs.
Our next reader is Anthony Buccina, and Anthony, just a minute. Books of poetry include Canned, American Boy, Pushing 60, and 16 Inches on Center, nominated for Pushcart Prize. His poems appear in Caduceus, Edison Literary Review, Journal of New Jersey Poets, US 1 Worksheets, Raving Dove, and Voices in Italian Americana. Anthony also has a webpage. Anthony, you're going to have to say, I can't remember the name of it.
It's not updated anymore.
It's not up there anymore. What was a wonderful webpage, but it did exist. Let's welcome, sorry, let's welcome Anthony.
Actually, the website is still there. It's a blog called New Jersey Poets, and although it hasn't really been updated in a year, there's plenty of good links on it, including links to the schedules here and Peter Murphy's site, his newsletter about what's happening in poetry, and there's links to self-publishing for poets, and some links to some great videos. So if you're thinking of going in that direction and doing something like that, the site is quiet, but it still has plenty of great resources. So it's New Jersey Poets and Poetry. And it's great to be back again, Maria.
Good to see you.
All my friends here, my poetry friends, and just being in this room, in this place, makes me want to write things. And I think it has a lot to do with all the workshops I've attended here. I was on the way to a workshop coming up on the Parkway from Nutley that things started to click, and when we got here, one of the assignments was write a poem about, I don't know, maybe animals or something. And I came up with this poem, which pretty much popped out whole. Just, you know, that's the way a lot of things happen, where you don't have to sit down and say, oh, what am I going to write about? You just sit there and it just kind of writes itself. You're just holding the pen. This is called Jersey Geese. Garden State Parkway traffic flies by. The geese graze in pairs in brown grass along the high-speed highway. One looks up, keeps watch, eyes cars, ignores police cars, tow trucks, SUVs, keeps eyes peeled for danger, fox, hawk, human. Mate eats, unworried. The grass here in Jersey is so much better than in Canada. We are Canada geese, not Canadian geese. Be that as it may, I've never been outside Jersey, having been hatched here. I learned to fly on your golf course. I foraged in your parkland and on your manicured lawn. I am your goose. This is my highway. See my markings in this field? I am not afraid of your silhouette dogs, or your real dogs either. I can honk a honk that will bring hordes of geese hightailing here, aiming at your head and painting your coop a greenish white. Drive on this parkway, but do not park here. Thank you very much.
Our next reader is Gail Fishman-Gerwin, and Gail's a Paterson native. Her poetry, book reviews, fiction, essays, and plays appear in literary journals and other publications. Her book, Sugar and Sand, won a 2010 Paterson Poetry Prize finalist, and her second collection, Dear Kinfolk, sorry, I'm blind. I'm broken and blind. Earned a 2013 Paterson Award for Literary Excellence. She's Associate Poetry Editor of Tiferet. Gail founded Edit, a writing editing firm in Morristown, New Jersey, where she lives with her husband, Kenneth. They are parents of 2 daughters and grandparents of 3 boys and a girl, and that's the most wonderful thing of all, Gail. And you see them all the time, which is even better. Okay, let's welcome Gail.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for this opportunity. I think the first time I met you, I was actually sitting next to you here for the 2008 reading. And we didn't know each other, even though we were in high school at about the same time, maybe 5 years ago. And
Definitely 4.
and she called my name and she looked around for somebody to get up, and I was right there next to her. And she said, "Oh, it's you." So now she knows who I am, and it makes me very, very happy. And the A is missing on the Fabian Theater, which is very upsetting to me.
Sad, isn't it?
It's very sad.
Oh, I noticed that too. Yeah, yeah.
You know-
Right down the left, right?
Terrible. I know. I'm going to read the first one, Dear Mama, and the dedication is for her and for them. We find it, certificate of naturalization. Why did you wait so long? The St. Paul left Liverpool, it says on the paper from the New York Library. November 28, 1914. Was it cold over the ocean? Were you frightened? You lived in England for 2 years, your Germany left behind. London, you said. The tea, I can still smell the tea. Your name, in 1920 New York census, Zilly with a Z, your father wrote. You were only 16 years old. I always thought of you as Seal. Everyone called you Seal. Daddy would sing, does your mother know you're out, Cecilia? Does she know that I'm about to steal ya? Bands played your request for the song at every party. They played it as you lit candles at our daughter's rite of Jewish passage. Mama, Seal, I called you Sella in the play I wrote about your family, but you wrote Seal. That's how you signed it on notes that said, my daughter was absent yesterday because she had a cold, a stomachache, a fever. You eloped November 28, 1926, the same date you'd sailed. We used that date to move to our new home. For luck, I thought, though Daddy had died earlier that year. Mom, why did you wait so long? The papers state the facts. You're now a citizen. March 9, AD 1944, Passaic County Police Court. Why then? Why not sooner? Was it because you sensed that your brother, your sister were taken to the camps, already were dead? Did you do it for them, for us? Lloyd B. Marsh, court clerk, used blue ink, slanty cursive, to sign the court decree. The name changed, Zilly with a Z, born in Germany, married, brown eyes, fair complexion, now officially Seal. Certificate C6098924, not unlike numbers that marked your loved ones who marched to their deaths, hidden records listing their names, last free residence, last breaths. Did you wonder if they were thinking of you? Dear Mama, why did you wait so long? Your loving daughter. On a little bit of a lighter note, I'm going to read Beat Goes On. In the ramshackle rec hall between the boys and girls bunks at Camp Lincoln Laurel in New Jersey's Wild West, Harry sits at the piano, taps out tunes from Pajama Game, while I act coy for Pete L., who can't match the melody or keep the rhythm, who urges me to count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 on his shoulder, so he can belt out his love tribute. There are others who can sing better, look better, move better than Pete, others who include my crush, Barry C., who lives up the street from me, who says he'll go to my sorority dance that January after I turn sweet 16. Barry, so handsome, so talented, so cruel when he breaks that date to travel to Queens, where his own camp throb, Tall Carol, lives. Leaves me to curl in my bed on a frigid Saturday night while my mom tells me that no boy, and later no man, is worth my tears. I still long to be his stage lady, to kiss him as the curtain closes, but no. Pete L. with no rhythm had played Emile DeBeck to my Nellie Forbush the year before in South Pacific. What a couple, they all said. Let's cast them again. Like Spencer and Catherine, like Fred and Ginger, forever fueled by audience demand for the familiar. So Pete and I pretend to love each other for the entire camp. We echo Hey There on either side of the tiny stage. Yes, we kiss as the ragtag curtain closes, then pose. He in pajama bottoms, I in the top. It's my last year of camp. My shining star does not guide me to Broadway to reprise my role for the New York Times critics. Neither does Pete's, I'm sure. Maybe he's a bald accountant who keeps the rhythm of corporate finances. Maybe a zoo guard, a chef, or a conductor for a small town orchestra, tap, tap, tapping his offbeat baton. Maybe. 3 decades after the camp shuts down for good, I watch as my pajama-top daughter pulses the pace on her leading man's shoulder, while I mourn for the loss of Pete, of Barry, of the rhythm that marked easy days in the ramshackle rec hall. Now, a quarter century after my girl's star shone on her high school stage, I belt out the same tunes in sync with Broadway radio, while the service station attendant in his protective parka wonders at the old woman in her car who serenades nobody but herself.
I have to say that this time we have a slightly smaller group, and that's because I didn't realize until we started sending out invitations how many poems in the magazine are from all over the world. And obviously I wasn't expecting anybody to come from France or Germany or even California for the reading, but it's nice to have our New Jersey and New York family here with us. The next poet is Frank Nicoletti, and Frank also has been very involved with the Poetry Center for a long time. And Frank, previously honored by the Allen Ginsberg Poetry Contest, and whose work appears in PLR and other magazines, anthologies, and journals, is delighted to share his fine memories of a special automobile and the characters whose lives adhere still like spring pollen to his polished metal body by Fisher. I can tell that was written from one of my prompts. Okay, let's welcome Frank Nicoletti.
I did not come from another country just now, but a family gathering which, in retrospect, seems to have taken place on another planet.
We know those kind of family gatherings.
We do. The 59 Impala. Its tail-finned rear, dual arcs, chrome-tipped lashes over almond-shaped ruby-red taillights, the eyes in the back of the head of that classic car. I stood all afternoon staring at her until the driver, back in her seat, reversed it, and Unc Shannon, staggering from Carp's tap room across Farragut Avenue to Kami the Greek storefront for another pack of Camels on trust, and to play the numbers that he always swore would pay for it and all the rest he owed around town, wrenched me up beneath my arms. Keep Rice, kid, you mesmerized or something. So many years have passed, and I never yearned for another make or model as that Chevy. Whenever a not half bad used one or fixer upper came along, well, I just never had the cash. After Nam, I took the benefits to learn the tool and die trade at the Tech, and no sooner was I done than the girls, they came along. And then the boy. Oh boy, a boy. Took a while, but he's come a long way at the clinic where the county gives him aid. Like I say, the girls, their schooling and then the weddings, and for the younger one, another wedding. You shouldn't be ashamed, she says, because it wasn't as big as the first. or her big sisters, I know she's thinking. Anyway, this guy she got now, he's got a job, and pretty soon he says, one, he can do digs. And I believe him. Well, all of this and that kind of put me on the side of the road, finance-wise. And then, of course, there's always been Rhonda Jean, our kid's mom. I have to say, I wasn't easy either. So talk about a gal with a handful. Rhonda Jean, with a rear as high and fine as Dathan Palace, fanned out like angels' wings. See her in or out of low risers, oh man alive. I tell you, in a manner of speaking, I never did want a maker modeled other than she is. Like I told her last time, I just know I'd give up craving Nathan Pala if only she'd come back. I swear. So happy to be here, you can imagine. This next short piece is not likely with the same narrator as the first one, but who knows? Time changes everyone. The memory of my cells. The memory of my cells grows inaccurate and I age. They have forgotten to reproduce themselves and I falter. They talk now, much less, some evenings not at all. And I have speechless nightmares that I grow smaller. Youth's bustle and the hum of bees have become a distant drone. The mytoblast of flowers and roadside puddles leach into a scary blue of mirrors. I once dawdled penniless and danced without shoes or care in the aisles of life's rich store. Now I send out a boy for salt bread. For I know when it is time to eat, time to clear the table, and time to apply precisely the grammar of a puzzle on the large print page. And then at dusk, to undertake my constitutional inside the safe and even village square.
I'm pleased to introduce Wanda, and just a minute, I gotta get to the P's here. Wanda Praisner is a recipient of fellowships from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts and the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation. Is author of A Fine and Bitter Snow from Palanquin Press. On the Bittersweet Avenues of Pomona, winner of the Spirit Press Poetry Chapbook Award in 2005, and Where the Dead Are, forthcoming from Cabin Carry Press. She appears in Atlantic Review, Love Water Review, and Prairie Schooner. She is a resident poet for the State Council on the Arts. Let's welcome, I think we were in the same issue with Prairie Schooner. I saw your poem there. They've been very kind to me, I must say. Let's welcome Wanda Praisner.
Thank you once again, Maria. It's always lovely to be here. I'm on page 253. Yeah, 253. Disclosure to a daughter. I wasn't to speak of the home when your father was alive. Sent to Brooklyn, the four of us were put in a third-floor quarantine for a month. Could see Prospect Park from the 10-foot fence and walkway. I was 10, the oldest. They cut off my long brown hair. Henny and Willie were in the nursery. I saved bread for them in my stockings until Mrs. Connolly saw and said they had bread. I was to eat my own. They sent my brother Ada and me to the public school, the only two in uniform, so everyone knew. Hilda and Helen, the youngest, went to a different home on the island in Port Richmond near Uncle Andre and Tante Olga. Our house on Necker Avenue was old. The cellar next to the kitchen had a dirt floor. Mama would start the wash, be drunk by noon. Helen crying to be nursed. I tried to lift the wash out of the boiler. Papa came home and cried too. Supper was Blitzen, dough balls and salted water. She'd send me to Lipschitz's in Stapleton with 6 fresh eggs for the quarter for her whiskey at the Britzies. on DeKalb Avenue. Papa kept wondering why his chickens weren't laying any eggs. Most of the time, we didn't go to school, Hilda and Helen barefooted and dirty. The paddy wagon picked Mama up dead drunk in the fields. She'd throw things. Once banged my head against the wooden wall. She used bad language, brought men home. They looked at me. Uncle Charlie did too. Papa wasn't Helen's father. The judge asked, "Do you love your parents?" "Yes." "Are they good to you?" "Yes." "Always?" "Except when Mom is sick. She was nice when she was sober." When we returned to our house, nothing had really changed. She'd cry and cry. Later for the DTs, they put her in cold baths in the hospital on Ward's Island. We were in the home, spring to spring. I remember Sundays. We walked to church, rain or shine, the boys in blue shirts, the girls in starched white cotton dresses.
Okay. I saw Sander Zula from Andover, New Jersey. And Sander, just a moment, I'm going to read his bio, is editor emeritus of the Journal of New Jersey Poets at County College of Morris, and is one of the editors of the Poets of New Jersey from Colonial to Contemporary, Jersey Shore Publications, 2005. Founder of the Index of American Periodical Verse in 1971, he was named the Poet Laureate of the Episcopal Diocese of Newark in 1999. His 3 books of poems are Succasauna, New Jersey, Living Waters, and Where Time Goes. Let's welcome Sandy.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you all for being here. I've been sitting back there thinking of a tiny paragraph from the New York Daily News that my aunt mailed to me in 1975, saying that this person right here wanted to form a poetry center in Paterson.
And it worked, didn't it?
It worked tremendously, but just think about that. That's almost 40 years now, and this idea has blossomed so tremendously. I just would like to thank you. I'm not a bit jealous. So many people I recognize in this audience. It's so good to see you. And so many of you have been in the Journal of New Jersey Poets that I no longer edit. Thank God. My poem received second prize, shared with Mark Hillinghouse in the 2011 Allen Ginsberg Awards, and it's called Coming Home from My 45th High School Reunion. I'm now planning the 50th, so you know this thing's aging. Jack Ketchum, that's the pen name of a classmate of mine named Dallas Mayer. He writes these novels that are fantasy, killer, thriller, ugly, tear them apart, tortured, sadistic. They're very popular in Germany. And Elizabeth said she was born in Paterson. I was born in Paterson too, and she said she now went up the hill to Totowa. I'm going to be buried in Totowa. Laurel Grove, the plot's there waiting for me. It could be today. Wait till you hear this poem. Jack Ketchum made me a character in his novel, The Girl Next Door. with my classmate, Barbara Toss, a beauty with whom I never had a chance, never even talked to very much. Jack has us going on a date to Don's Drive-In for a pizza burger and fries. Don's is gone, and I never went there for a pizza burger or anything else. I think I might have gotten lucky. And the novel, I mean, I haven't read it yet. I surely hope so. I never got lucky in high school. What is lucky anyway? Our 10th grade pregnant classmate with crooked teeth who had to drop out. I was lucky not getting lucky. Except in some familiar exotic dreams. That Saturday night, leaving the reunion, I drove to my boyhood home my dad got rid of 10 years ago. A dozen years ago, 10 years before he died. I stopped the car in the side street opposite and gazed across the road. At the White House, no longer my home, that held all 17 years of my life before I left it for college and forever. The only light on in the house was up in my old bedroom window. I thought, I'm up there doing my homework. I can't begin to understand. I'm up there doing my chemistry homework I can't begin to understand at the desk my dad built for me. And somebody in a big white car is parked down there on Montgomery Road looking up at my bedroom window. But I'm not doing homework at all. I'm up here doodling a nude picture of the girl next door.
Our next reader is Martin Golan, and Martin's poetry and fiction have appeared in many magazines, including Glimpse, Pedestal, Fiction Warehouse, Poet Lore. His novel, My Wife's Last Lover, excuse me, My Wife's Last Lover was #1 on Amazon's Montclair area bestseller list for over a year, and was followed by a short story collection, Where Things Are When You Lose Them, which earned an extender and laudatory write-up, an extensive and laudatory write-up in American Book Review. I'm going to have bigger typeface. I can see. I can't read this anymore. Let's welcome Martin Golan.
It's always a delight to be here, see all these familiar faces. Before I read, I want to mention that it's a little announcement in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which this is. A short story of mine is being dramatized at an art gallery in Montclair tomorrow at 4 p.m. I have some flyers out there. The story is called Nora Standing Naked, and it's about a woman, Nora, who has undergone breast cancer surgery, and while she is 7 men and 1 woman, in effect talk about what her body meant to them, in effect defining her in her absence. And only in the end does Nora wake up from the anesthetic and stand up and, in a sense, reclaim herself. So there are flyers, it's free, and we'll also be collecting money for a Avon group that collects money for underserved women who don't get proper preventive treatment. So the poem that I'm going to read, it was got honorable mention in the Allen Ginsberg Prize, and I was actually standing right here reading it. So I was tempted to read a different poem, but I'll stick with the rules and I'll read the one that's in there. I don't want to get Maria angry at me. You have to get in the right mood to read this. It's called Sitting in a Bar on the Upper West Side, as my newly single friend tells Match.com stories. And I wrote it after sitting in a bar with my newly single friend, and he regales me with all these stories. And as I said last time I was here, it's proven once again that dating, especially online dating, is like hysterical and loads of fun when you experience it, like vicariously, when someone else is telling you about it. And just in fact, somebody read this poem of mine and and then started telling me about a woman they have who's his age, and they really like each other, and I thought, this would be like the greatest meeting story ever. Like, you know, somebody read a poem about this, the trials and tribulations of online dating, found out there was a single guy, asked to meet him. That'll be the next poem. Anyway, sitting in a bar on the Upper West Side as my newly single friend tells Match.com stories. Watch out for the ones with pictures of their dogs, he warns, or demand a salary 3 times their own and far more than most men make. It has to be over 5'10" and financially secure. Don't they realize it's like a guy saying only women with big boobs need apply? Take it easy, I say to my friend. Relax. Or tell you what men should stay away, the ones they're sick of from the last relationship. Criticizing you before you've even met. No games, please, as if their ad isn't a game. The whole dating thing itself a game. I'm stunned how little women know what we men want. No wonder they're alone, he says. So why are you alone, I asked my friend, who was looking for wife number 3, estranged from his children, his life a mess, what assets he had gone in the last divorce, a star in high school, a babe magnet then, now trying to pick up graduate students half his age. All he's got going for himself these days is demographics. And why is everyone spiritual, but no one's religious, he starts up again. I like someone who hates walking on the beach. Who doesn't like walk on the goddamn beach? Calm down, I say to my friend, who has begun to shout. Tell you the truth, he says. I hate these smart women. They're so exhausting. It's an old joke, and we laugh. Yes, those smart, accomplished women who know when you're lying, who know you better than you know yourself, yet remember the first time you used the word love. As she chats up a Turkish graduate student, half his age, who is in awe of his paper on the covert sexuality of Victorian poetry. I take out my cell and dial your number. You do not answer. Again, you saw my name, but didn't pick up. My friend comes back to say the graduate student said she has a friend and wants to know my story and why I'm sitting all alone. I'm not alone, I say. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to find, like you, someone to save me.
Our next reader is going to be Florence Ames. And Florence, if you just want to say a couple of things about yourself, so I don't get you to the school where you talk for so many years wrong and all that, you do me a big favor. So let's welcome Florence Ames.
Yeah, let me have that. Okay. This is almost. Okay.
Okay, just stay with me. Florence Ames, what? Here. Oh, all right, okay. I don't see it. Oh, Florence Ames is a retired New Jersey special ed teacher. Her poems have been published in the Paterson Literary Review, Lips, Reveille, and the American Voice in Poetry, Legacy of Whitman, Williams, and Ginsberg. Florence Ames is also, we really collect the nicest people in the world, and Florence is one of the nicest people in the world.
Oh, Maria. I'm here today because of this incredible woman. We go back to the early 1980s when I was teaching English at Ramapo High School in Franklin Lakes. And one of my good buddies told me about these workshops, Dodge Poets. And I applied to the one that was nearest, which was in Englewood Cliffs. And my good fortune, I had Maria. And for the next several years, I just kept getting Maria. And that was the beginning. No, I didn't want to. That was the beginning of my trying to figure out, and I'm not quite sure I did, what is poetry? And like someone in my, in quotes, mature workshop this Thursday, and then more than one cried, I just kept crying and wondering, when am I going to stop crying? Because Maria gave us such incredible prompts. So I was confused. I don't have a poem in today's edition, but I went looking because I wanted to find a poem about my maternal grandfather. I recently wrote something that's current, but I wrote about him first in that early workshop. And because I live in 3 different places, it's very confusing. The poem about him I did not have, but I picked up this anthology, which is number 27, 1998, just to see if I was in here, and I went. And there's the poem about my grandfather, and there were 2 others also about my paternal grandfather and my mother, but I want to read the one about my grandfather, so now I have to find it. Okay, 229. And this is based upon a prompt you gave us, Maria. I think you threw out 20 words and we were supposed to write a poem. It's called The Samovar. My grandfather, Nahum, loved me much more than I ever loved him. I was his Fremahana, the child named for his beloved wife, who died much too young from some unnamed disease. One summer's twilight, this fiery 5-foot man from Kiev brought to our house a large Russian samovar of tarnished brass stamped with a registrar's mark he bought for me on the Lower East Side when I was 12. And he proudly carried it all the way from the Sea Beach subway station, allowing my mother to be its temporary custodian until I would marry and have my own home. Now it sits on a sideboard in my living room, and I do not know how to use it, but when I dust it, I can still hear my grandfather's voice as he calls out to me, Frema, my Fremahana. Thank you. I'm going to read a second poem, and this is for you, Frank, because every time I see you, you ask me about this poem, and you want it. And I wrote it in a workshop here maybe 3 years ago, and Frank was there. So, it's about someone very special in my life. I celebrate my Aunt Doris. My Aunt Doris is now 101 years old. There are so many stories she could tell and told us about her escapades. She, my mother's daring sister, my mother slightly older, the one always concerned about doing right, but still following her kid sister, once known as Goldie. This petite woman, our neighbor Joe says, was curvaceous, naturally sexy. Her niece, my cousin Carol, less kind, has said, all tits and ass. And to my husband, she is my maiden aunt, to which he adds, made in Brooklyn, Palm Beach, Pittsburgh, and Chicago. While my aunt wonders where all the men are when I sit next to her in the dining room of the one-story care center where she now lives. And as she looks around, speculates, the men must be on the second floor. Some time ago, when I was visiting, she felt very weak, and I helped her return to her room then sat alongside her on her bed, listening to her tell me she knew what was wrong with her, and I, eager to hear her diagnosis as I waited for the nurse to come check her vitals, my Aunt Doris then told me her problem. It's been so long since I had a man. Thank you.
Linda's first book of poems, Dream Bones, Word Tech Editions, is now available. Her poems have appeared in literary magazines such as Word Gathering, the Journal of New Jersey Poets, the Healing Muse, Rattle, Kaleidoscope. For more information on Linda and Dream Bones, go to www.lindacronin.net. Let's welcome Linda Cronin.
I'm reading a poem that was in an earlier issue of Paterson Literary Review, and I think a lot of people relate to it. Who've ever tried to teach a non-English speaker English, or whoever learns another language. It's called English Lessons for Soon. Bulky and raw, the words scrape across the roof of your mouth. I wait while you struggle to tell the story of your summer, twisting your tongue around the sounds, dry and sandy against your tongue, your lips. In those first lessons, tired of not being understood, you fought to pronounce the bizarre sounds of your address, Roosevelt, Roseland. Today you ask me what to say when someone gives you back the wrong change, or what to say when people ask for money over the phone. And I imagine you 5 years ago when you first arrived, scared and bewildered, 6 months pregnant with a husband and a small son, and only textbook English taught by a Korean. Often you have wondered if you'll ever be understood in the place you call home. Days pass, you learn to talk in the language to the teachers and arrange play dates for the children, taking comfort in knowing the language of your new country.
Edmund Gransky from Ridgewood, and Edmund is, he lives with his family in Ridgewood. He was born and raised in Plainfield, New Jersey, and has lived in New Jersey for most of his life. Though he travels widely throughout the world, he finds inspiration and gratitude for his work in the Garden State. A beautiful state, I must say. Let's welcome Edmund.
It's nice to be here. I'm actually reading from the prior journal, and I like to write poems that where the narrator is experiencing time in kind of a physical way, not so much in a linear way, where time seems to have a certain texture. And the poem is called The Cancer Patient's Husband. A husband whose wife is dying of cancer will appreciate her proclivity for shopping after having the privilege of helping her find the right wig on the day her hair falls in a clump in a sink. The cancer patient's husband is told it's normal, but he's lost his appetite for a late lunch. So they linger longer together, searching without speaking for the perfect fit. He wonders, watching her inspect herself in the mirror, how she measures one against another. Is it length, curls, color, giving herself a new look, or staying with something safer, closer to who she was before? She doesn't say and he doesn't ask. See, a wife appreciates having her husband along, to patiently chat up the salesgirl while she tries things on, to hold her bag, to pay the bill. The cancer patient's husband senses they came to the right place, a store selling surrender in rented strands, temporary vanity rooted in simple daily routine that disappeared down the drain. He knows she's not seeking rootedness, only a shining surface. Everything makes sense. Gazing at her new straw-colored hair, the cancer patient's husband asks himself whether they'll return together to try something different. Just arrived from a caring, prepubescent child, and he realizes as he falls into step behind her, saying goodbye at the door, she's a wife. She'll tell him when it's time for something new. Thank you.
Our next poet is Mary Messick, and she's from Morris Plains, New Jersey. And I will say that I only met her for the first time on Thursday, where she was in my workshop and wrote 2 wonderful poems, I must say. And that's all I know about Mary. So I'm going to let her tell you something about herself. I believe she lives part of the year in Arizona. So let's welcome Mary.
Yes, my name is Mary Messick, and I'm relatively new to New Jersey. I moved here about 6 years ago, and I've really lived a lot of places, and when people ask me where I'm from, I really don't know what to say. I grew up in Texas, but I am happy to tell you I'm not a Texan. Because I wasn't born there. But anyway, that's a poem. I too taught English as a second language for many years. And my poem is called 2 Gardens. 1. My father selects tomato seeds, turns the soil, applies fertilizer, decides how much water. It is right or wrong, the edible yield, the verdict. 2. My mother tends roses with love, and they stab her, offering her soft, glowing layers of reds, pinks, yellows, whites. Sweetly fragrant they bloom, bursting with treacherous joy. 3. Water! Water! His voice thunders from the garden, till I get to him with a cold, unspilled glass. Sweat-soaked and frowning, towering above rows of beans and tomatoes, he drinks in silence, gives me the glass, empty. 4. Morning glories sound sky-blue trumpets. Roses boast reds and yellows on the wooden gate. My white cat crouches under pungent gardenias, nested in deep green. My small hand opens and closes black handles, moving the long steel blades, joined by a single pin. With my powerful scissors, I cut juicy stems, fragrances, and hues. Bursts of deep red zinnias, snapdragons, purple iris, dangerous roses. Bouquets for teachers, lovers, mother's grave.
And our last reader for this segment is Bob Ward. And Bob has, no, and you're going to be in the next section. And Bob is a really loyal participant in our readings. Unfortunately, I don't seem to have his bio, but perhaps you'd read your own bio up here, since I don't have one. Just tell something about yourself when you come up here, Bob, okay?
Well, my wife has been complaining about my shoes squeak. I bought these shoes for $100 about 2 months ago, when I was getting ready to go on a march with 100 other people. We were going to march 100 miles from, it's along the Potomac at the end of it, to Washington, to protest global warming. We got this shirt we're wearing for our grandchildren. And next March is going to be an even bigger march going on, 1,000 people, we hope, from Los Angeles to Washington, showing up right before the congressional elections, hoping to have, at least trying to put the environment on the agenda for the congressional elections that are coming up. So I'm going to read a poem from a prompt that Maria gave us on Thursday. The prompt was "Wash Hanging on a Line." The poem is called Colorblind 2013. I imagine myself inside their dreams. 2 Americans, Trayvon and George. Both feel their blood pressure rise. A knee jerk, a finger bends. Dreams are full of muscle twitches. The push and pull, fight or flight. Either way, the dreamer scheming to survive, dreading to wake up, calling oneself coward. When I dream like Trevon, I imagine myself free. Free to walk any public street, day or night. If demons appear, yelling you don't belong, I stand tall, like a tree, refusing to leave, fighting if provoked. When I dream like George, I imagine myself a guardian. The demons come quickly, like in video games, but I have quick reflexes. If I kill enough of them, my name in lights. I score, #1. In dreams, the world can be colorblind. A solitary walk under the stars, a video game with no ethnic ID. But on a dark night, when they met, both noticed skin color. Both felt an enemy was at hand. Both chose to stand their ground. They fought, both unwilling to let the other destroy their dream. After the funeral, after the jury was told not to consider race, after the brief deliberation leading to acquittal, we wake to a familiar scene. It could be 100 years ago, or 200. Whitewash hanging on a line. Nearby, the dark wash, the color blue. Everywhere, if you look close, old stains endure, alongside flecks of fresh blood. Thank you.
The next person is Ellen Rowe, and Ellen also has been a very steadfast person as part of our audience, and she's taken buses to get here and gotten rides from all sorts of people, and we love to have her. Ellen Rowe.
Actually, I go back to footwork when Marie had her office in the college library. I go back to footwork when Marie had her office in the college library, and the open readings were in the cafeteria across the hall.
You could hear me 100 miles away when I had that office, and I was always screaming bloody murder.
Paterson's Woolworth. I didn't know how much I needed it till it was gone. I needed it for needles and threads, for change purses and bus card holders. How I needed it for jelly beans, for baskets, for chocolate bunnies for Easter. How I needed it for corn candies, masks, and costumes for Halloween. How my kids liked running to the rear to see parakeets and canaries, tropical fish and gerbils. I wrote this around 2008. We had the crash or recession, whatever you want to call it, but I feel it rings true today. A game of numbers, buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high. Don't buy to save a nation, don't buy to save a country, buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high. Profits, 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 profits. God help us, God help us, God help us. A game of numbers, And the first poem that was editor's choice in the Paterson Literary Review was Say Something. He slaps you. You say nothing. He throws a few punches. You say nothing. He breaks a few bones. You say nothing. Your family goes to your funeral. It's too late to say something.
Our next reader is Janet Ulrich. I don't know if she's here. Yes, she is. Let's welcome Janet Ulrich.
Just tell my daughter a humorous poem for Columbus, I believe he's in this room. Yeah. He's here with us. And my mother was an Italian artist and poet who came from all these readings. We wrote poetry together. And I wrote a humorous poem. And it's that more based like on a friend of mine. Okay. How many poems in here? I can't even find them. Oh, sorry. I put it in the folder, you know, so this always happens. You put something in a folder and then it gets mixed up. I'll do it. This is a very humorous poem, and it's almost based on the idea that I'm traveling with Columbus on his journey to America. And it's called Message to Columbus, or Mutiny, you know, because I'm not willing to, you know, travel with him. He's giving me a hard time. I shall steer my own ship on a separate trip. I may flounder afloat, but will guide my own boat. All alone I will sail, though I stumble and fail. And it's signed one of your mutinous crew. In New Orleans, a crew is a Mardi Gras group, that phrase. So it's K-R-E-W-E. And then I have an ending to this. And this is humor, even more humorous. Though you've explored distant shores, the best are home in native Rome. And that's where my family is from.
Hello, my name is Napoleon Nikolai Zhivkovich. I'm an historian and a lifelong Patersonian. And I'd like to read very quickly. There's a new book by Dame Margaret Travel, who's edited the Oxford Companion of English Literature. Some of you may be familiar with her. I was going to read some passages, but don't be too tedious. So this is Quand je pense las au bon temps, quel fut qu'elle devenue, quand me regarde tout nu, et je me vois si très changé, pauvre, sèche, maigre, menu, je suis presque tout enragé. That's Margaret Travel. And the last poem that I found in the new Paterson Literary Review is called Honorable Mention by Neil Zern, with whom I share initials, and it's entitled, I'm Going to Russia to Adopt a Child. I said I'd go with her to the Mohawk smoke shop to buy cigarettes, Marlboro being the brand of choice, cartons of them. They were cheaper on the res. You need them to bribe the officials with, she said. That's what they told me at the agency. And I also have to bring $10,000 in United States currency. I bought a money belt to wear under my blouse so I can hide all that cash when I go. Besides buying the cigarettes, she picked up some trinkets to use as gifts. When we got back to my place, I carefully stacked the cartons of smokes on the kitchen table. They reminded me of boxed ammunition ready to be used whenever necessary. Still sure you don't want to go with me, she said. I'll pay. Even though I'm part Italian, it was another offer that was easy to refuse. Have to work, babe. Can't afford to take time off. You know that. We've talked about it. I know, but well, I'd really like you to come along. Outside, some jerk was screeching his tires, and in some other world that I imagined as being next door, we were definitely having a different conversation. She was a single woman who wanted to be a mother, so much so that she said, waiting to adopt a child is almost like being pregnant. I sat down for a minute, closed my eyes, and considered my reply. If I wasn't careful, pretty soon she'd be sitting on my lap and calling me Daddy.